Dive In.
Bienvenidos a Dive In.
Witajcie na festiwalu Dive In.
Welcome to the Dive In Festival.
Willkommen zu Dive In.
Bienvenidos a Dive In.
Welcome to Dive In.
Mabuhay sa Dive In Kapistahan.
Üdvözlünk a Dive In Fesztiválon.
Добро пожаловать на фестиваль Dive In.
ברוכים הבאים. בואו לצלול איתנו.
ডাইভ ইন উৎসবে আপনাদের সকলকে জানাই সাদর আমন্ত্রণ।
Dive In'e yokoso.
Benvenuti al Dive In Festival.
Dive In Festivali'ne hoş geldiniz.
Good morning or good afternoon, Trevor.
Thank you. Thanks. We can see you. I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you, Keaton, but I'll crack on anyway. Just to say thank you for getting up early. I hope things are well at home. And it's great to be here talking to you at the Dive In event all about well-being. And we're really excited to know what the CII is doing. And so obviously there's big focus on health and well-being in the insurance industry at the present time. What's driving that from your perspective?
Well, mental well-being is a topic, I think, for everyone, Trevor, not least because we're all facing some of the same challenges. Our personal lives, our family and friends, and of course that's making us a lot more conscious, aligned and empathetic with the needs of others. So the one thing that COVID really has done is it's brought us closer together in understanding some of the challenges that we all face in life. Positive well-being is really good for employees alike. The research suggests it can have an impact on motivation, productivity, absenteeism, and of course staff turnover. Indeed, figures in the Centre of Mental Health suggest that UK companies lose a staggering 34.9 billion sterling pounds each year in lost productivity as a result of mental health issues. So it's clear that the evident impact of the pandemic has heightened most employers' focus on well-being, as well as the impact, of course, we shouldn't forget, on the end customer. In the same way that quality is becoming an increasing aspect of conscious customer centricity around the insurance, as well as a regulatory expectation of treating our customers fairly. The current climate certainly pushed well-being to the top of the agenda for many companies across the international landscape. So just to give you some quick statistics, pre-pandemic, 1 in 4 people experience poor mental health. During the pandemic, Mental Health Foundation found that in June of this year, 49% of people in the UK experienced anxiety, compared to 62% at the start of the lockdown. So we can clearly see the impact that the pandemic has had on our mental well-being and the way people are looking into the future. So and these figures should be echoed across the globe, with people aged 18 to 24 more likely to feel hopeless and loneliness, whilst 40% of 55-year-olds feel lonely.
Wow, I mean, that just sounds huge, and those numbers are just phenomenal. Obviously, there seems to be an amazing opportunity for the whole of the insurance industry, both insurers, brokers, agents, and so on, to really connect much more deeply with everybody that they come in contact with, especially employees. What's the CII been doing, both in the UK and around the world? What suggestions do you have based on your own experience?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Trevor. The CII prides itself by example, and it's been very active over a couple of years. Our previous HR director, for example, was a recognised champion of E&I, and Wellbeing was incorporated as a key component of these programs. So we have a very active staff engagement and feedback program, and we embrace the full potential of flexible working. We've run a 6-week mindfulness program for our staff on 7 weeks, and we've even piloted art therapy and, of course, provide counselling to staff who need it. We've also used sessions on healthy eating, recognise nutrition is a key part in people's mental well-being, as does, of course, so a number of initiatives around helping people engage in perhaps a healthier lifestyle and healthier eating regimes. Financial worries, Trevor, as we all know, significant pressure on people and their families. So we also offer staff an independent, confidential, free financial planning consultation to really help engage in their financial well-being, which of course aids good mental. It's important to recognise the characteristics, though, as statistically, and all the people in the audience won't be surprised, but statistically men are less likely to develop mental health. So dialogue is vital. So we've employed things like coffee mornings to break down barriers, and also spent Mental Health Awareness Week sharing experiences so that people can understand that it's normal, not abnormal. There's obviously a lot of stigma attached to admitting that you're suffering from any form of mental challenges. But of course, it's become important that people do share that. The old saying of a problem shared is a problem halved really is the case. For a lot of people, just being able to share, talk to others and realise that they're not alone can make a profound difference to the way that they feel. So, and just as a reminder for everyone that's listening, we participate in Mental Health Day. It's coming up again, so on the 10th of October is World Mental Health Day, and I would invite everyone, both in Hong Kong and online, to take just 20 minutes out of your day and relax, completely technology-free. Now, I'm not sure if you can still hear me, Trevor, but you've gone silent. So
I think it may have just gone back onto mute again there, Keith. Sorry about that. That's the old classic which everybody keeps doing in the online community. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Great. I was just saying that there's been a number of initiatives on mental health around the world. For example, we've seen Prince William, who is president of the UK Football Association, really pioneering mental health with professional footballers. I know the Premier League is very popular, particularly in Asia. What other initiatives have the CII been pioneering in the insurance industry on mental health? And what have you heard of going on around the world?
Yeah, I mean, there are some great initiatives that are starting to come through now, Trevor. And in 2019, we collaborated with Mind Charity, Private Work Guide. It was based on the Stevenson Farmer Review, the insurance-focused paper, and was launched as part of exploring mental health at work. So socialising these sort of things is a really important part of the role that we play as a professional body. More recently, we hosted a Mind Cycle event for staff and the wider sprint, and it was a highly successful event, linking exercise with mental health. The feedback was absolutely phenomenal and provided an engagement way to open up about mental health issues.
Wow, I mean, it just seems there's so many opportunities here, and it makes me wonder why we haven't been doing these things up to the current time. I mean, obviously during the pandemic, we've been forced to adjust our ways we live and work, and this new normal online working as we're doing now. Obviously, this pandemic has had massive impact on well-being. I'm wondering, what's the CII been doing in terms of helping to staff to cope with the additional demands that I'm sure you've been having? It's obviously extra stress, extra anxiety on people. But what have the CII been doing there to help staff?
Yeah, I mean, the key part for us has been engagement. So making sure that you're regularly contacting your team, that you're guiding your managers to stop early signs of, for example, workload. So there's a number of initiatives that we've been since we went to lockdown and started to come out to make sure that we're constantly engaged with our staff. Our flexible working now has moved into something that we call anytime, anywhere. So one of the things that really noticeable as a result of lockdown is that staff have coped much better working remotely than anyone would have imagined prior to going into lockdown. And that's really changed our thinking for the future. And it does to alleviate a lot of pressure on staff, knowing that they've got more flexibility on the way that they work to fit around their lifestyle. It can lead to really positive improvements in productivity and working behaviour. So there's some of the key things that we've been doing, but I think there's no difference. We recognise that there's more to be done. Like all of us, as I said earlier, the one thing that COVID has done is it's brought us all onto a level playing field. So we're all just as affected by the potential impacts of COVID, and particularly we're very conscious of the needs of loved ones, our family and friends, and that really has more with the needs of our employees, the people that we work with.
I mean, thank you, Keith. I mean, obviously you're a senior industry figure, you're very well connected. We're interested to know, what are your lessons from lockdown? What are your big takeaways so far over the last 6-8 months or so?
Yes. I guess the key one really is we should be prepared for the unexpected. The sector has genuinely been surprised by how well staff responded post-lockdown, and in particular the use of technology remotely has worked better than many might have expected. And indeed, that's likely to change business models forever. So a lot of senior people I talk to across the world recognise they perhaps need to move into an agile working much quicker than they would have done before the pandemic came along. There's no doubt we'll be more resilient as we come out of this pandemic and better able to face any similar situations in the future. Notwithstanding that we may still have some way to travel or we emerge out of the current situation. 5 key learning points from this, Trevor, to give to you is we should be willing to sacrifice something for the greater good of society.
Yeah.
We should definitely, work from home should be an option for many. Taking a sick leave could save lives. It's amazing how our move to anytime, anywhere work practice made us realise that people have struggled into work when they shouldn't have, and of course spreading any infection that they have. So taking a sick day doesn't mean to say people can't still perform, but it does mean it doesn't spread disease. And I think there's a consideration and a change to our view on when people aren't well, they should be home. The internet should be a basic right. It has kept businesses as well as families connected during this pandemic period. Though most people have access, it should be a basic right for everyone. And I guess the fifth thing for me is it does bring into perspective some of the previous challenges. So I would use the don't sweat the small stuff in life. There are far bigger issues that we have to face off to.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for sharing that wisdom. I just want to turn to Hong Kong at this current time as an example of some of the things that are happening in Asia. I mean, I'm an executive coach and I work with a number of insurers. Some of them I know have brought in policies to cover street sweepers. We've had policies to cover, frontline medical workers, give them some insurance coverage, and that's been really welcomed by society as a whole. I'm just wondering, what have you noticed that's happening in other parts of the world? I know the CII has presence in the Middle East and South Asia and so on, and obviously the UK. What are the standouts for you that you've seen that could have been, say, more practical help to people?
Well, there are similar mental examples in many parts of the world, and those that you've already mentioned. As challenges like this can bring out the best in our profession. So not forgetting, of course, as always, that insurance has the power to change lives and plays a vital role in society. So it's really easy to see that, similar to the examples you've given, that's replicated in other parts of the world. Of course, different organisations are having to cope with the pandemic in different ways. And the pandemic strangely caused a consistency as we're all facing similar or the same challenges. Sharing of good practice seems to be very evident across the market and can be powerful in uniting the insurance profession, irrespective of the region that you're operating. According to Willis Towers Watson, Asia Pac organisations now looking to enhance their wellbeing program and healthcare benefits as a direct result of 72% organisations really enhance their employee engagement, and 80% did mental health support, like counselling and mindfulness.
Yeah, that's. I mean, just to let you know, Keith, we've got about 5 minutes left. I'm really quite keen to get some great questions in. One of them I just want to say, in terms of well-being, I was working with one of the big broking firms recently and running a session for them. Immediately after, they ran an online mindfulness session for their senior leaders. I'm really interested to know, what the CII been doing. I mean, I'm hoping it would be online Pilates or something like that, which everybody seems to be doing these days. What examples have you got that you've been doing to support staff, maybe working with other insurers? What's going on in that area of mindfulness, in terms of well-being overall at the current time?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and there is a lot of good examples that are emerging through, cooking, healthy eating, and clearly exercise is one of those. Not that we've run our own Pilates classes, maybe that's one I can put on the list for us to consider going forward. Again, as I mentioned earlier, in 2019 we collaborated with Mind on the Thrive at Work guidelines, and there's a lot of opportunity for organisations to collaborate in a way that the sharing of good practice really does help to accelerate the improvements that we need to see in well-being overall. So things like the employee assistance programs are another great tool. These provide counselling and support services for both employees and for indeed our members. So we set up initially a coping hub, which started to link to lots of other resources, rather than just trying to do it all ourselves, when there's so much other good content across the market and people willing to share it. We've created a hub that actually sets up different links to different organisations that indeed probably do run the Pilates amongst other things.
Right, well, it sounds like there's a lot going on. Before we wrap up, could you just maybe share us some closing words of wisdom from your side. Great to hear some wrap-up thoughts before I hand on to the next speaker.
Yeah, I've always been passionate about the role of insurance and the impact it does have in society. But I think there's a real opportunity for insurance professions to come together and be a leading force in well-being. The key challenges in the workplace culture that supports employee well-being is that there are a number of different factors that play, from mental health and stress to physical factors such as sleep, fitness and illness, as well as mental well-being and, of course, general job satisfaction. I think it's really important that we take stock of the challenges that we face immediately to improve the workplace culture for the future. It's therefore important that we need to give our employees choice of a range of different options and benefits in order to meet their needs and interests. And some of these benefits to support well-being could be to educate staff on financial matters. So the thing we have to remember is doing a Pilates day without explaining why might seem a bit odd to people, in particular those who don't want to participate. But education is a really important factor, and what it also does is it helps to get rid of the stigma that can sometimes be attached to mental well-being. So it provides on mental health is another thing that organisations could consider, and encourage staff to focus on their physical health. So lots of organisations now that help people think about heading into a healthier regime. It's helping them with gym membership, riding to work, etc. There's a number of things you can tangibly do to get people into the right place. Most important thing is create a culture that values individual team members. So too often the people we rely on the most sometimes forget to say thank you, congratulations or well done. So I think a general principle of awareness of your surroundings and who you work with is a key component now of future well-being for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, from everybody here in Hong Kong, Keith, we're really grateful for you getting up super early and sharing your thoughts from the UK. And a big thank you for all that you're doing to drive forward all these initiatives. And so I just want to say a big thank you from everybody here. I'm going to hand over now, but we really appreciate you making the effort, and regards to everybody back there at head office in the UK. Thanks.
My pleasure, Trevor. Have a great event.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
So thank you, Keith and Trevor, for the insightful discussion. So we're very glad to have you all here joining us this afternoon. And I'm so sorry, we apologize that there's a technical issue in the beginning. But we also, at the moment, we also have around 100 to 200 participants joining virtually. So once again, I apologize for the technical issue in the beginning. So let's move to the next section. Now I'm going to introduce the next speaker for this afternoon, Ms. Sushila Rivers, Office Managing Partner at the DLA Piper, who's going to talk about the mental health and well-being at the workplace. Let's welcome Sushila, who will be joining virtually via Webex. So Sushila, please take over the screen.
Hi, it's Sushila here. Can you see me? Very good. I'm assuming you can. My name, as you said, is Sushila Rivers. I'm based in Hong Kong, and I'm the office managing partner here. And today I'd like to cover mental health and well-being at the workplace, to say how important it is for a firm like ours. So a little bit about DLA Piper. So we're a global law firm, and we've got lawyers across the global with a global footprint, 40 countries around Americas, Middle East, Europe, Africa, and Asia Pacific. We provide a full range of services across this region. Let me just turn the page. Okay, all right, thank you if you do that for me. So at DLA Piper, we we are very culture driven. We value diversity, we value inclusion, equality. They're a huge part of how we live our values. And as one of the world's largest law firm, our people reflect the diversity of our clients in many communities and markets where we work. And for us, looking after our people is key in this rapid changing world, and it's very much part of our DNA. Next page, please. The speakers today mentioned COVID, and it's created absolutely thrown light on mental health issues, because it is certainly quite a challenging period for all of us. So we are a dive-in sponsor, and we recognize that there is this cultural shift in the way we look at mental health, and we need to have an open and healthy dialogue about this. So a few of the speakers talk about being open, transparent, communication, all very key. So as a firm, we've absolutely looked at our culture, what we do actively, and we are committed to putting resource, time, and lead by example to prioritize the issues related to mental health. So we're going to support these issues, and especially as in relation to the insurance sector, we also look at our business from a sector perspective, and the insurance sector is a very large sector of our business, and we will do our part in sort of taking this forward. Next page, please. So I like to do things simply, and what we've done is we've looked at this mental health issues into next slide, please, into 3 R's. So I like to do things in 3. So let's start with the first R, and some of the speakers talk about this already. First of all, we need to recognize. The first R is for recognize. We need to recognize that mental health issues exist, and everyone experiences these issues a little bit differently. We need to create, as the slide says, a confidential space to access employees' psychological well-being. And actually, after we are aware and recognize, maybe if required and if needed, we take steps. The second R stands for reducing the stigma. Really important to understand that mental fitness and well-being is part of our work culture, and we want to reduce the stigma. And somebody said to me today, if somebody had a broken leg and took a week off or a month off to sort out a physical ailment like this, nobody thinks twice about it. The same approach needs to be had for mental issues, mental health issues. We need to talk about it openly, and we need to take away the stigma attached to it. So 2 R's, recognize perspective, reduce stigma. The third R is to respond and take action. So very good to raise awareness. It's very good to understand what we are dealing with. And then we take action. And how we take action is, first of all, we create a strategy. So at DLA, we have specifically a health and well-being strategy. And the reason why we have it is really we want to create a culture. We believe in this strong culture of looking after our people. And actually in looking after our people, ultimately, it makes good business sense. It's good for business. So that's our strategy and the why we do things, because it's really important to understand why we are doing things, which will then lead to action. The other thing that we do is we provide online tools to help us respond to the crisis, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. We offer support because, after all, it's a people business. And, it's the right thing to do. It's embedded in our values, and I want to spend some time talking about our values because that's very important to us. We have 4 very distinct values in the firm, and we talk about it quite a lot. And part of the health and wellness needs to feed into that 4 values that we hold close. So I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Next page, please. So how do we support the workplace? The first thing that we've done is we created a well-being survey. So we spent some time really asking questions and getting people to participate. And communication is key, getting people to believe that their input makes a difference. There's no point just doing something for the sake of it. So out of the survey, we can look at hotspots, where people are feeling okay, where people are not feeling okay, and within an anonymous sort of group section, and if people want to, they can seek further help. We try and analyze where the business is at. And, COVID and before that, Hong Kong had protest issues as well. And so what we managed to do is to keep ourselves on top of issues rather than being reactive. We tend to be more proactive. So that's the emotional well-being surveys. We set up a program called Speak Ambassadors Programs. The third thing we do is what we call the EAP, Employee Assistance Programs. I'll tell you a little bit more about it as well. Managing your mind modules, Mindful Business Charter, and digital health and well-being tools. So I'll go through each of these. So next page, please. So on emotion, the first one is the emotional well-being survey. So what we did, as I was alluding to it before, we conducted regular pulse surveys. We measure attitudes, perceptions. We ask questions in a variety of ways. We get people to do it literally 5 minutes, and then we accumulate the data. It's very confidential, and that's very important to our staff, and we maintain that. And it just puts us on the front foot. And also, it just means that we can put all the other things that we need to support individuals. So that's the survey. The second thing is the Ambassador Speak program. So within, say, the Hong Kong office, we select ambassadors from the whole stack of our workforce, partners, fee earners, business service staff members, and we create facilitators. We educate ourselves on mental health awareness. What we don't do is we don't find the solutions, but at least we can spot the signs. We have conversations which then can lead to conversations with others. And I always use this word, the workplace needs to feel like a safe environment for employees, safe physically, mentally, and certainly with COVID, lots of steps to always put the interests of the individual first. And actually one thing we've just discovered is there is a myriad of preferences, and you have to really listen. So I've coined the phrase powerful listener, because as a lawyer, I tend to be a powerful speaker, and I've really tried to learn to listen, actively listen. Ambassadors are also trained to encourage employees to speak with other professionals or counselors, and we equip ourselves with knowledge of how to pass that along. Okay, next page, please. The next one is the EAP program. We call it My Care. So what we have is we sign up with the Employer Assistance Program, and if there is any mental health issues, and the speaker before talk about acting quickly, and that is exactly what it is. Sometimes it is about acting quickly and spotting the signs and giving the right level of assistance. So the EAP program offers this lifeline in some circumstances. Okay, next page, please. So managing the mind modules. So it's about education, again, a word that's being used about education. And I have 4 children, and when I talk to them about D&I issues or mindfulness issues, they have the vocabulary. They don't have the same amount of stigma, although there is still stigma. And that's where we have to learn, and we have to be teachable. One of the things that I think is to really believe that we continually learn and understand in this fast-changing world with continual challenges. That's really important. So we've got this digital program called Managing Your Mind. So it explains the science behind the threats and how we react to threats and changing environment and uncertainty. Really interesting for those of you who are interested in the science and the chemical imbalances, etc. The other thing I would say is, as a firm, because we are open, it's actually inspirational. We've had some partners, very senior partners, come forward to say, we find this difficult. This is an issue for us. And just openly speaking about this, this very powerful, very senior person saying, actually, I find this challenging. It does help break down some of the barriers to opening up. Anyway, this program is help to help us deal with uncertainty. I have coined a term, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I say that, don't worry so much about being uncomfortable. Sorry, my phone is going, so maybe we'll turn that off. So we'll have tools and techniques, and also knowing when to ask for help. So I always say to people, don't be afraid to ask for help. know when to say to somebody or trusted somebody, actually, I need help. I am struggling with this. And that actually is strength. Asking for help is a sign of strength as opposed to the reverse, which is how I think sometimes we look at things. I like the looking for the silver lining concepts. So sometimes even when things are not going right, there is always a silver lining. There's an aspect that you look at, and just using that in your language to create that positive, proactive, protective mindset. Thank you. Next page, please. Okay, so the next one is the business charter. I mentioned that earlier, and I just want to tell you what we've done on the business charter, because we've created 4 pillars. I just want to talk to you through those 4 pillars. So the first one is openness and respect, and by this, the word communication is used all the time. It's how we discuss openly, in an involved way. It requires a bit of skill in relation to using the right language and creating that environment. Really important. Also, everybody communicates differently, so it's interesting also to know how other people communicate. So learn other people's communication language. The second one is smart meetings. I had to understand what smart meetings mean, and actually it is, sometimes making it easy for somebody to dial in, and I find this themselves, it's quite stressful. You're late, you're back-to-back calls, and I'm on the phone trying to do a dial-in, and I have to memorize the code. Actually, we've got technology to help make things easy for us, where it's an easy way to dial in. Let's take away some easy stresses. So in this firm, we try and facilitate that, make that important. The other thing is emails have been overused for every kind of dumping ground, and just because you've sent an email doesn't mean that the person's received this. So I've sort of gone backwards. How funny life works this way. From using emails, now I'll say use the phone, find another way of communication that is a voice. And so sometimes I'll say to people, break the barriers, because there is a concept that once you rely on the email and you stop communicating on a one-to-one, actually even talking to somebody on a phone becomes quite stressful. So, get familiar with other ways of communication. The third one is respecting. Another pillar is respecting rest periods. Really important. So many studies on the importance of rest, the importance of sleep, the impact it has on your mental wellness, the need to take in oxygen. So very physical aspects, very scientific, and very real. So even, I like the concept. Sometimes in the office we'll have a time when we'll say, okay, everybody, let's learn to breathe. So all these things you can do in the office, and leading from the top. It's leading from the top, getting participation at all angles. The last one is mindful delegation. So when you delegate, and an example for how this represents itself is if I'm delegating a task, and I know we all like the concept of sink and swim, sink or swim, or throwing you in the deep end. Actually, you can do all that, but prep people. So, set people up to be successful rather than setting people up to fail. So I like giving people information, and everybody's a little bit different. So knowing the individual, giving them information so you know how best they work. And actually, it's about a win-win. I'm all about a win-win. It's not a zero-sums game for me, which means setting people up after you've given instructions so you know they will have a feel-good to deliver, and then you can improve performance that way. Okay, so that's the Mindful Business Charter. Another slide I'd like to talk about is things that we partner up. So we partner up with also various software companies, and we have them on our laptops to help us actually develop software to keep us calm, to keep us focused, to keep us actually mentally strong, mentally balanced, all those words. And actually to feel that we are part of this larger community. We're not on their own, and there are lots of tips and techniques, whether it's breathing, whether it's giving perspective, whether it's taking a rest. So many things that we can do to actually understand that what we are going through is transitionary, because what we can only see is what's in front of us. And actually our horizon needs to be further. We need to look ahead, and you need to look broadly. And then the thing that you're facing with right in front of you doesn't look so daunting. So those are the things we do at the firm. I think we're at the end of the presentation. I would like to finish up on the slide. This is a good slide. So back one, thank you. So we place a great deal of importance on educating the leaders, because the leaders are the ones who are sort of leading by example. We believe in training through real-time practice and also learning. We use all the tools we can find. And one of the things that COVID has shown us is that you can use online so effectively. You don't have to rely on online all the time, but you can use it very effectively to suit your timing, and therefore take away the anxiety attached to other ways of learning. I like bespoke services, tailor making to the individual, and the word that we've put on the slide is resilience. You know, we talk about success and winning, but actually in this day and age, we are resilient, and part of winning will take into account failings. So there is a lot to be said in also taking what we can from failures. And you know, when I send my kids to bed at night, I talk about, you know, good things they've done, and they're big now. And I also say to them, tell me some of the things that you didn't do so well. Let's talk about that and celebrate it a little bit. So that's in the language, so people feel that actually failing, it's part of being human. Okay, next slide, please. So DLA Piper is a member of the City Mental Health Alliance in Hong Kong, and it's supported and founded by the city's businesses. And this is an alliance that we are very proud of, and so we participate in events and we stay involved. And then it's worth mentioning this so other people can also feel it's similar steps that they can take. So thank you very much. The journey to an inclusive and healthy workplace is an ongoing journey. It's continuing, and we look forward to working with all of you and all these stakeholders in prioritizing mental health. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Sushila, for the presentations and for the very insightful presentations. So indeed, COVID-19 has shed a new light on mental health issues as months of lockdown has taken a toll on our mental well-being. It's never been more important to have an open and healthy dialogue. So we will arrange this token of appreciation to be delivered to your office. Once again, thank you for your presentation, Sushila. So I'm going to move to the next speakers for this afternoon. First of all, once again, apologies for the technical issue in the beginning. So we will have the break shortly right after this presentation. Now I'm going to introduce the next speakers for this afternoon. Mr. Richard Bates, partner at Kennedy's, Mr. Kevin Yam, partner at Kennedy's, will be delivering a presentation about stress or depressed, how to combat mental health issues at work. Let's welcome Richard and Kevin to the stage, please.
First of all, very much for this. So, my name is Bates. Kevin Yam over there. Both myself and Kevin have a real passion, I would say, Kennedy's, like DLA, is an international firm. Kennedy's, like DLA, has a large involvement. We are passionate, and that's often a overused word. We are passionate about diversity, and that really is focused on both that and the choices. It is very interesting. Industry. So we wanted to say that this this talk is really about the difference between stress and being depressed. I think anxiety probably deal with that. Lawyers are associated with stress, I think everyone would say. We're no strangers to that. I would say some people would say that they thrive on it. Working in this profession, is definitely, as I say, anxiety. A couple of surveys here that prove that point, that's proved. There's one from insurance firm, Protectivity. Lawyers are the second most stressed professionals. You might be interested to hear that survey says that the most stressed are HR professionals. Speaking to our head of HR, she says she gets it both. 63% of lawyers confirm they are stressed on a daily basis. That is common territory. Most stressed age group, 35, 244, lots of other demands on their time, well, and overall, higher stress. Looking at junior lawyers, perhaps not quite as bad as junior doctors, but again, a very stressed profession. This is the UK Law Society, the Junior Lawyers Division, Resilience and Wellbeing report, surveyed 1,800 people. 1 in 50 junior lawyers have suicidal thoughts. That's a very large amount. That cannot be right. We must do something to address that. 48% experienced mental ill health in the last month, or define that, and just under 94% experienced stress, and a quarter of those categorise that as severe. So really, lawyers are stressed. Kevin will talk a little bit about why that might be the case, and then we want to talk a little bit about what we can do to address those issues. But I just finished my section by saying two of Kennedy's core values are being supported and being approached. And it seems to me that those two core values are at the very core of dealing with this issue, with illness.
Thank you. So, the way this presentation I am effectively a level of involvement talking about all the negative things about why lawyers get stressed, and that is I'm able to get. Right? Yeah, here we go. Richard will end up talking about the positive. Managing on the whole hospital. In many ways, I think we're an absolutely perfect venue in talking about mental health. Completely wide setting. Most of wide chairs. And if some of you are not putting bags in chairs, you'll see there are some hospitals being put on certain chairs which say you're not allowed to sit on them. And then mix that with a voiceover that we have at the start. They are nowhere, and it would be like a mental health session, possibly from Matrix. I don't know, but it certainly is quite sci-fi. I guess one of these kids with mental health is going to rather than reality. Now, why do lawyers get stressed? No shortage of reasons, really. I mean, yes, lawyers are greedy people. Yes, that's the $500 note, I guess. Okay. If I'm able to. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go through every single one of these reasons as to why lawyers get stressed. I'm certain right? Look, high stakes, well, high is definitely a lot of us. Either are very busy at work, or we like to think that they're very busy at work. And when they're not busy at work, we think why they're not busy and get worried about that. And then we've got the high stakes involved, sometimes life, liberty, a lot of money, usually other people. Still. Look, I'm a litigator and I'm an investigations lawyer, and I'll lawyers say, oh, you know, you guys are the fighters, but actually, no. Even if you're a corporate or a banking lawyer, you stress because fight over things, fight over causes for the other side. So, empathy, well, okay, empathy, let me explain this one. I'm not trying to suggest that lawyers are associated or black or some of us. But really, I think a lot of us internalize this. At some point or another, they have lost over clients. So then we have hostility, which I've talked about in the context, focus. I guess lawyers are obsessive in ways that we do. And that causes us often overly about things. Then of course there's work-life balance. We always talk about work-life balance, but actually work-life balance or work-life. Right? And the legal profession, how many rainmakers are there where their lives are listed for relationships? How do you look at perfectionists? I'm now trying very hard not to come and reminding myself that is probably a little bit of myself. Job insecurity, well, that's everywhere. Competition, it's everywhere. And then there's vicarious trauma, which is in a way feeling what clients are feeling. Okay, here's a poll question. How would you rate your overall stress levels at work in general? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Hands up if you are always stressed. Okay, if you're sometimes stressed. If you've got a stress overload. Or if you're burning out entirely. No one's going to admit to that, I guess. But don't you love this whole question, right? Because actually, it doesn't give you options to not stress. But that's the answer to cross-examination. For lawyers, I guess, we always ask the question to make sure that we get the answer that we want. So, are we going to get some poll results? Go up. Okay. Oh, here we go. Wow, stress. Well, actually, what does that say about a lot of you are actually quite sure only stress sometimes? Which bodes well, either bodes very well for everyone, or bodes very badly that no one. One or the other. I'm not going to speculate, I'm not a psychiatrist. So, let's continue. Okay, we see. Oops. Okay, apparently. No, we just need to. Okay, look. Something a little something. Life is about stress. There's a fine line. And some stress is actually good for us. Look at a lot of literature on biology. Having stress is the very thing that causes still, but look, once you start losing sleep, actually I lose sleep more often because I watch football and cricket and all that at night, but that's that. Once you lose appetite, now on the question of appetite, some of you who are based in Hong Kong might recognize me more for doing video blogs of Eat and Travel Weekly. So I try and eat and I try and exercise, but if you either lose appetite or if you are binge eating, that's a sign. Once you start having issues concentrating, or if you just keep feeling guilty about things, internalize everything and feel that, oh, you know, I'm sad, I'm angry, that everything is no good. Rather than saying that you should always look at the right side of life. So we've got to be careful, because if we are not careful at its extreme, we're looking at possible loss of life, suicide, mental breakdowns. Those things, funnily enough, they happen quite often amongst lawyers. I mean, in the last few years, there's been a number of high-profile cases of large international law firm partners committing suicide, and it's a very sad reality. Oops. Let's see. Is it working? Yes. Okay. Law firms realize that we've got a problem. Okay? And look, Susheila's presentation with DLA talked about some of the things that they have tried to do to deal with this. And with me having talked doom and gloom, Richard will now go on to talk about some good stuff that we as a firm at Kennedy's have tried to do. So there's this. We think that it is important to look after employees' mental health. Absolutely vital. It's not just a, you know, time after employees. Even on the most selfish, most basic, we have a mentally healthy workplace, mentally healthy colleagues, a more diverse environment. We ensure that we have a more productive workplace, a more creative workplace, happier workplace, less turnover. And those are sorts of things that we should all aim for in an effective workplace. That's where mental health and diversity and inclusion is absolutely essential to a good workplace. And on that, I let Richard take over with another poll question.
So I think one of the main ways that we can help deal with stress is really providing giving people a voice about it. So this is the second poll question. Who would you tell, this assumes of course you would tell somebody, but who would you tell if you feel stressed at work? So if we can have the responses to that. The first one, oh, okay. Anyway. That's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, I had no idea what results we were going to get from this, but it's clear that most people they are stressed, they speak to somebody outside the workplace. I think that's partly to do with stigma, maybe partly to do with, maybe partly to do, however, with there being no one to speak to. And I think that's something that we can really, really work on. I know it's something that Kennedy's has tried to work. Okay? We go back to the slides. Okay, so very interesting to hear the previous talk because we do a lot of those things as well. And I think that's common amongst law firms. As we were saying before, it's because law firms are realizing that there are selfish reasons for introducing these sorts of programs. But also from our perspective, we believe that we're a moral business. We have a responsibility to our staff. So as I say, 2 of Kennedy's core values are being supportive and approachable. That's what we say we are. If we aren't that internally, why would any client believe that we have those core values and that we exhibit those core values externally? So there are selfish reasons, but we believe those core values make us who we are. Interestingly, those core values, many firms will bring in external consultants and say, okay, tell us how we should behave. Our core values, we brought people in and said, tell us what we're good at. Tell us what makes us distinctive as a law firm. Tell us, hopefully, what's making us successful. And those are core values, therefore, that aren't needed to be learned. They're part of what we say makes us the firm that we are. And as I say, if we didn't then follow that through internally, we wouldn't be able to look at ourselves in the mirror. So having an open and honest culture, talking about those issues. Stigma attached with mental health issues in the workplace has reduced, but it is still there, as we saw. People still prefer to talk to their friends, not bring these issues up within the workplace. So, like DLA, we have an online 24/7, 365 ability to ask for help. That's confidential. It allows members of staff to talk about a wide range of issues. There are no shortage of things that they are going to need help on. And as we were saying before, other things keep getting added to that list, including COVID, working from home, the stresses of what your kids are going to be doing because they're not at school, all those sorts of things. So addictive behaviors, I put these alphabetically, but as I say, there wasn't room on the slide to include all the different things that people might want to discuss. Critical incident and trauma response, depression, personal relationships, all of these things. This is an ability to talk to someone about those issues. It's accessible, it's up to date, as I say, we keep adding to it as we learn from our staff what issues are causing them stress, what issues could lead to bad behaviors. That can be face-to-face, we prefer it to be online. So we have that, and I think a lot of law firms now are seeing those sorts of tools for dealing with workplace stress as vital. As we said before, we feel that mental health in the workplace and diversity and inclusion are closely related. If people feel part of a community, if people feel valued, if people feel that their differences are celebrated rather than being negative or viewed as issues or problems, then we feel that really helps deal with creating a positive environment in the workplace, ensuring that people understand that they are a valued member of that team. And so we have a program called Let's Start the Conversation. It's been very successful. We invite people in, some of those from the insurance industry, some not, and those are extremely well attended. And I know that they have been really valued by people who are saying, okay, at last we can see we are being represented. The firm is recognizing that we have many people who aren't the cookie-cutter stereotype lawyer. And I think that's been really important in, as I say, us living our core values of supportive and approachable. Just some other things we've put up here. Suicide prevention, again, we've added that to the employee assistance program, and very stressful time, as many people have said already, working from home, dealing with COVID-19 issues. Those are things that we are trying to address as they arrive, providing support and assistance for employees who find those types of things. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. I think we did. Yeah.
Thank you, Richard, engaging type of questions. First, let me invite Dylan to come on stage to present our token of appreciation.
So Dylan, wearing masks.
The Chartered Insurance Institute is the professional body for those working in insurance and financial planning. Our purpose is to build public trust in our united profession. Life is a risky business, and we all face risks that can affect our assets, income, health, and wealth. Insurance can't take away the pain of a loss, but it can build financial resilience and help put lives and livelihoods back together as a force for social good. Every day, our profession helps protect both individuals and businesses in a turbulent world. With 125,000 members internationally, our community is continually growing, allowing us to promote best practice for the profession throughout the world. Our members belong to a body that values qualities such as competence, integrity, and care for the customer. They form part of our faculties and societies, encouraging collaboration across the sector. The CII provides members with rigorous technical, market and regulatory knowledge, making it easier for them to do their jobs professionally and serve their customers. We produce relevant learning that links modern technologies with practical, up-to-date and wide-ranging education and qualifications relevant at all stages of the career. We are creating an engaged membership by utilising the power of our local and international institutes and societies to reach our members. This includes thousands of dedicated volunteers facilitating support, networking and community engagement opportunities. We want to show insightful leadership by leading societal and diversity initiatives ourselves, collaborating with our sister professional bodies and supporting wider market initiatives. We have committed ourselves through our manifesto to making our organisation modern, relevant and diverse. The CII's Royal Charter states that it exists to secure and justify the confidence of the public, but we can only do this by being at the heart of a united profession.
Welcome back to the Diving Mental Health and Wellbeing in the Workplace. So we will start the second session of Diving Hong Kong with the panel discussion. Mental well-being is the key to productivity, moderated by Mr. Ruth Samahada, Global Relationship Partner to Asia Insurance at PwC. Ruth is on stage, and also on our distinguished panelists is Amanda Mercer, MPH Head of Wellbeing Solutions, North Asia at Aon, Ms. Warren Chen from the EY, Mr. Ian Lee, Strategy Director at PA Insure, Ms. Marina Paul, Engagement Lead and Chief Happiness Officer at Fundra, and Dr. Zoe Fortune, CEO at City Mental Health Alliance of Hong Kong. I will pass the time to Ruth now.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be your moderator for this afternoon with regard to this very, very important topic. I thank all the panelists for being with us today. It's awesome to have you. Thank you. Now, I prepared an in-depth introduction of all of them. I told them yesterday, I want you to sit in a specific order so that I can remember you, so I have the flow. But Sissy did a great job of introducing people quickly, so we'll immediately get into the swing of things, if it's okay with you. Can you hear me all right? Are we shouting loud enough? Good, good. So before jumping into the details with regard to this topic, let's first talk about what we actually need with mental well-being of employees, let alone what it means for productivity. So my question to the panel members and maybe Amanda, if you don't mind, you can kick it off, is how would you or maybe even your organization define employee well-being?
Thank you, Ronan, and thank you so much to the Dive-In Festival coordinators for putting this panel discussion together. So I think at an individual level, you can define well-being as having the right balance. And in that, meaning that you have access to the right resources, commitment, and that can allow you to achieve optimal health and performance. Now, of course, that's highly personalized, and at an individual level, and if you take that in and organizational. Can we use the microphone?
Let's give us 1 minute. All right. So, in the meantime, now that I see Ian is also not only, let's say, strategy director of ZA Insurance, he's also the chief fitness officer. Okay. And now that I meet him personally, I understand why. Okay. So he's taking every now and then 70 plus people of ZA Insurance to do Spartan races between Shenzhen and Hong Kong. Now, Ian, this can be a very good reason. Oh, I know. Yeah, insurance, but also for others to do other things. Seriously, there must be a link. Mental well-being. We're jumping from one thing to the other. Maybe a first reaction. Does it work?
Not sure.
People shouting.
Yeah, so in our view, I mean, obviously, so John and he, we're not very sure. For a couple of years. Our Hong Kong office is not well at this point. So, and then our Shenzhen office and our offices that support our Hong Kong office amounts to about 400. But essentially, the way we look at wellness, at least from my personal responsibility, are more bringing together the employees. So I was just saying earlier that blind in a fintech business startup, especially and we had launched a bank recently, launched an so for kind of aggressive timeline for the last 2 years. And so we can easily see over time that people are kind of we were kind of treating them, quite honestly, because we could be kind of just like grunts in the work done first. And so then, luckily, kind of early stage, we, as part of the leadership, with me, but we were kind of the early starts in terms of the company and international and our office in Hong Kong. And we recognized that we need to kind of drive more. And the second that we kind of brought people together in different activities like Spartan races, which really kicked off the first large scale. We also had other types of activities to kind of keep things rolling every month. And that's kind of what I was responsible for arranging. And that brought people together and kind of reminded each other that we're people and that we have a support group and that we kind of reach out to each other instead of just forget and so on and so forth. And we don't need to like cross the building and meet others and other resources, or other team members. But yeah, to us, well-being, mental or physical, however you define it, has this kind of like human connection, collaboration, all these things together. And for us, that kind of came together via fitness at first, but then that does also kind of resonate in other types.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. Lady Amanda.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue. Can everyone hear me better with the mic? So it is so true for organizational well-being that there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. I think it's really dependent on the company's culture, their employees' needs and interests, as well as engagement goals. And accordingly, I think at Aon, we like to think of well-being across 4 dimensions. So physical, emotional, social, and financial. And that tends to be how a lot of organizations compartmentalize their well-being offerings and initiatives as well. So of course, we're talking today a lot about mental health and well-being. But I also think as a result of the pandemic, there's been a large emphasis on the social and financial components as well, which maybe have been less popular in previous years.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Let's go to the next question. So there are many things which may adversely impact the well-being of the mental well-being of employees. And the question is, how can you avoid it? What are the fundamentals of employee happiness, and what is an organization, maybe Marina on the fund group, doing this regard? What's your view?
Well, for me,
Yep.
so I don't think avoided it, but create awareness all around mental health problems, and also most importantly, create a space for employees to have the right channels, seek support, and that with programs, and also when they do need to when they develop. That's very important. For us at Fulford, we're over 110 years old, so we have plenty of these active groups that are really trying to be passionate about coming together in different locations and also to serve by volunteering. And of course, COVID is that very much. But coming back to mental health, we haven't had this conversation so far until September 2019. And we had the honor of inviting Dr. Zion Fortune to come kick off our health and well-being. That was really the first time, and I was quite adamant as well about having the conversation around health. Not necessarily challenges, but we have focused a lot about getting people to think about physical health, staying active, right? So we haven't had that conversation around mental health. Remember, Dr. Fortune said it's important to talk about mental good health. And so I can say, as Chief Happiness Officer, was to highlight that, to keep that in the internal community. All the channels that we report and people, that we use the same language. And feel that language is important. This is a difficult topic to address. Not everybody is comfortable about it, but share and know that you're serious about it, that it's alignment. It's not day's work. But just to answer your question, not to take too much airtime, because I could go on forever about this. I could actually be one more. But we, since September 2019, we've had initiatives and employee and online and offline have been lunchtime meditation throughout COVID, before we could gather with some yoga, mindfulness practices, and that virtual mindfulness during COVID times. We also ran a digital initiative about emotional intelligence as well. Not everybody has the language, not everyone has the language to talk about how they're feeling. And not everybody's comfortable with that. I think just to end on here is, I think for employee happiness, from my experience, it's all about a sense of belonging. And as an employer and as an organization, the best thing you can do is to create to actually show that you really care, that you are there to support your people in every way. And for all the campaigns and initiatives that you might need to walk the talk.
Yeah? Would you like to summarize?
Thank you. Yeah, I think when we talk about mental health, also health is but this is exactly what we're talking about. We are talking about good mental health, talking about connection, health, and we're also understanding and recognizing that health is not structured. People are not necessarily happy all the time. People experience waves, and that's pretty normal. So what we need to do in the workplace is recognizing fluctuations, putting in place strategies so that people can thrive in the workplace, but also recognizing and understanding when stress is a little bit too much. Earlier about this triggers stress. Putting in place strategies to be able to identify and limit their stress. And then to be able to say, if and mental health, it's not stigmatized. We can talk about this. This is a normal part of human experience. And we know this is resolution, and people come on to that later. It's how to change those kind of things in the workplace. I think it is about increasing awareness and understanding, about leadership from the top, about destigmatizing, about training. It's about all of those things together, and it's about creating culture about mental health and mental ill health.
Anything for you to basically, post-pandemic, we are forced or asked to work from home much more than ever before. Personally, in the beginning, I thought, wow, it's fine. Although at a certain point, for me at least, it sort of became unhealthy, right? You work much more, much longer, no distractions, no need to go home, right? So I felt it was not healthy for me, per se. What can employers and employees actually do in order to mitigate the negative effects from working from home? Can you hear something? Sort of. Yeah. You could do it. A little bit. Just do it. It's better. Partners, fantastic. Having them there to help me and sharing,
why it's important for the government to have a strong mandate to drive well-being in organizations. And the other thing is also visible role modeling. I work with a lot of students, and it's fantastic to see them with their dog walking out, for example, when we have a Zoom call, and they're in the basement, our regional, our area managing partner, all of these things help to make that we're coming through time more easier to deal with and to build that camaraderie between us is also really crucial. And personally, I have a baby boy, and I bring my niece out, all of my sisters, and I gauge are comfortable or like that. My son to have on my lap because it's difficult. Support and those things for adults. Working
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Sorry, I was just going to add, my children run a one on their own. But we've just done some research and we found that people during COVID, the biggest number one is fear of impact. After that, people are stressed and concerned about the social activity. But for those people with children under 10, childcare, number one priority. And actually, throughout the survey, what we are finding is value the ability to be heard. It's about understanding what's going on for different people, being able to say, you've got your own child, or you're at home. Where is the flexibility? Where is the trust that provides our employees? Where is the autonomy to be able to say, we know that you're working, don't log on until 11 o'clock, whatever it is. And then bring that back to actual workplace are there. There's a way to do that. Let's learn the lessons right now and be able to bring that on. Having employees' voices. What we did was we had some COVID-19 pulse surveys. We gave how they were feeling, what they needed, and sent that back in.
I recognize that, by the way, that sort of feelings are messengers of need, actually, and people need to at least talk to someone. Right? Good.
I can supplement a little bit, but I'm also kind of like evaluation services. But then I think there's a lot to be said from the empathetic and conscious of what's happening from leadership. So again, like a handful of us started around this on our side. And we were very sensitive to COVID. And so we are aware of what's happening quite quickly. And then our reaction and our team is kind of far more mature than their versus us company. But they understood, recognized that there's an issue, and it's going to create nice bubbles for our employees. We're very avid users of this. And like you said, very quickly, productivity probably went up because suddenly the CEO has direct access face-to-face in like 2 seconds. Instead of having an initial friction of walking across the floor previously, now he's more readily calling me spontaneously when he just put in my calendar. So yes, you're always like under the gun, something might happen in the middle of the night because you all have urgent deadlines, and so forth. But then there was a quick recognition after a couple of weeks, it was quickly acknowledged that a lot of us are kind of living in each other, and I think you that I brought up an example in your home where like you and your husband or family is like using the same rooms or having to split up the different rooms, the tiny rooms that we have in Hong Kong in our apartments, kind of figure out how do we kind of sort your work, my work, my spouse's work, our roommates' work, and then like holding meetings all at the same time, and then awkward hours. My parents, for example, had to live with me temporarily because they actually lived and that we called them back to Hong Kong, and we saw the kids ironically went the other direction, but they ran back. But But that said, we set up like standard setup meetings just for productivity's sake, but then we also had a very quick acknowledgement because, hey, is everyone okay? Like just having a basic check-in, the first thing you do at every stand-up morning with your respective functional teams, check in with your team, make sure they're okay. Just, are there any issues? And then, very quick issue, the next thing that happened is, without showing up in the office, you no longer have those kind of casual human interactions anymore. So like friendships, or actually your work friends, dwindle a little bit, you don't realize how much you depend on them, so they're all gone. And then so that kind of like de-stress moment, just kind of talking across the table, you know, your cooler, water cooler conversations, coffee chats, and all these things, they all vanish, right? And so then you have to tell your leadership to take active engagement with your team, and then just check in on people individually maybe. And then I had happened, I was just thinking that we had our leadership in customer service, and something, I remember I heard something, someone being sick in China, that was an issue. And then I just pinged the person, and it turned out that her mother is like hospitalized and having issues, not because of COVID, but because of a long-standing disease. And then it was like, oh gosh, well, my mom, you know, talk to your boss. And then I immediately kind of like figured out a way to change something. But then there's a bit of this kind of, maybe you gotta reach out. And then this kind of empathetic. And I feel like our culture, at least built around empathy, got it? It's not as structured. We don't have a lot of the resources in place. We don't have scorecards or like online or anything like that. But just having a basic starting point of, hey, there and let's try to do something, and we know something's out there, and then set up in teams, best practices to work at home. I saw that Instagram, there was a trend on Stressman, or working out or something like that, where it's like 20, do 20, tag 20, or like something like that, and then we just did that internally. And then for some reason, like all the executives were doing 50 push-ups, and everyone else trying to do 50 push-ups. So sometimes you'd be surprised. You know, just to kind of remind everyone, hey, we're still like human culture working around things.
Yeah. Very true. Great story. And by the way, yeah, an organization like mine with PwC, you know, certain things we're doing well, certain things we're doing less well, but as a partner in that firm, what I really liked during this period, it was only about safety of people, of our own people, about people in Hong Kong and mainland China, and it was not about at all about the results, the economic impact. And I thought that was really good, and I believe that small little things where people show that they truly care, that's it. Now, the title of this discussion is that well-being is a key to productivity. Right? In the current environment, well, productivity basically means doing more with less. And particularly in the current environment, there are quite some companies who try to sustain or enhance their productivity by cost reduction, automation, and reskilling of people or upskilling of people. So the question I have for the panel, and maybe I start with you, Amanda, is what is the actual impact of the current productivity demand of organizations on their employees, on the well-being of employees?
Great question, and I would almost argue that, you know, productivity is not about doing more with less. I almost feel like this experience has forced us to work smarter, not harder, right? And I think at the end of the day, the net winners from this experience will be those organizations that haven't necessarily cracked down on, you know, these kind of high quantitative productivity or performance metrics. Those employers rather that give employees support and resources that they need to perform at their peak. And I'm going to try to use this example, so bear with me for a second. You're probably wondering why I'm going to share this, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is a model which is quite commonly used in HR practice. But essentially what it says is that in order for an individual to achieve self-fulfillment, they need basic things like air and water and security. And if you apply that model to the workplace, in order for people to perform at their peak, they really need sense of belonging, like you were sharing, Ian, a sense of job security, and that they know what their role is and what their place in the organization is. And this whole experience has really turned that model on its head, and I think put employers in a position where that if they don't focus on it, they really will see an impact to the productivity and performance of the organization on a whole. So it is an exciting time, and it can be daunting for clients that we see who haven't yet gotten started on their well-being journey. And I've heard so many great suggestions from the group, but at a baseline, you really need to ask your employees, start to have these opening conversations, not be afraid to talk about mental health openly, and signpost to resources like employee programs, have these sort of manager trainings so that they can be equipped to have those conversations.
Yeah. Right. Done.
I completely agree, and I think that there's a lot of tools around for employers, things like that. We are now hearing and making a little bit of I'm hearing about actually very wide. But one thing I also just want to bring up is this concept around present. And so that actually is when someone is in the office, going to work, really experiencing mental health, or in physical health. And we recently found in a subset of people that experience mental health, 83% of them will always go to work, even though when they're experiencing the problems. Now, if you have told you in your story, I think that is how to correct what this says. Not about the absolute number, it's about that there's a population that we are not seeing. That means that they are not going to be numbers that come support them. And their employers aren't necessarily aware of it. When it comes back to productivity, 76% of that 83% says that it's impacting quality and productivity of their work. 18% that's a large number. We also found 10% of people have mental health. So I don't think we need to fixate on the absolute numbers around this, about data, etc. But the point is, there is a population of people who are not finding better at measuring presentation, being able to identify those people that we're not hearing from, be able to better support them as well, because that impacts and
Thank you. Go ahead.
It's not about being in the office. How can we change that mindset and shift to smarter ways of working, healthier ways of working, and not necessarily having to be in the office. There are many ways in which the workforce more productive does not mean that they have to be in the office. Even if they are in the office, what environment might you create in the office? I mean, simple things like having standing desks should really be something that we don't want our employees sitting there and not being to do sketching or something. Having a nice environment for them to feel like they want to come to work is also really important. And that's another reason companies are putting well-being rooms together and creating a quiet room as well that also factors in multiple practices, well-being practices. Things like that. And you might say, oh, Hong Kong doesn't have a but it is possible to have that a little bit of the makes a lot of the difference. As well as other key hacks is simple things to show. There are a lot of tips that we do. We're going into the next question. Just like we have like these like email signature, putting in that you don't feel like you have to reply straight away by doing the workout, because we're all working with globalized time zones now, and so I might be sending oh, you haven't even woke up yet, but then they might feel stressed, like, oh, I need to reply straight away on class reference. Not necessarily. It's quite common actually for me to be writing to Japan, and then they would respond to me straight away, and I should tell them, no, don't reply. I bring email and say, looking forward to next days, or when you next time. Things like that makes a world of difference, and there's loads of other hacks that I don't know. Yeah, really add to that. I wanted to actually very people are steady engaged. I would on this topic because pre-COVID, I feel a lot of corporates and a lot of organizations are fixated about engagement, getting to the top tier, getting more people productive, engaged, fully present. I feel that post-COVID or during COVID, that role should completely been shaken up, and people are not talking about getting your employees. I wanted to refer to it, and then I was saying that pyramid, the basic necessities around all the things that affect us. Going out to work, be it online, by Zoom or Teams, or physically in the office, if that safety, that sense of being able to get to work, will never really get there productivity. So it's really now a dream to get your people to perform at this level without noticing all these. I fear that this conversation is still very young. So much for us to be doing. There's so many thoughts and so many things, and I think 2020 gave us the opportunity to open our eyes, turn it to the human side, and address a lot of things, not just about the employees showing up to work. There's also about the benefits of and there's about traffic, about lockdown. There's just so many that I think we're just starting to think about it, and there's a lot more work.
Very well put. So we're coming to the core, basically, of why we're here today, okay, and why we're having this debate. There's still a stigma around mental health, about mental well-being of employees. And still today, the majority of employees who admit issues fear to be isolated, fear to be considered unfit for the job, fear to be considered abnormal, basically. The question I have to the panel is, what structure and culture should be in place to create, let's say, a positive workplace? Maybe, can I ask you?
And actually, stigma may be coming down a little bit. So I think it's about raising awareness about having one. We've had a lot of things today about the importance of coming up. That's another. We've had about people, particularly leaders and actually anyone, this is a new campaign where people talk about their experience of public, or even just a period of vulnerability. That says it's okay to come up and talk about it. So I think it's about having a strategy. Structure right from the top. It's about the senior leadership involved. It's about raising awareness. It's about understanding. It's about training. And we also know that there's evidence from the UK that the number one factor to reduce stigma around mental health is actually speaking to someone who's experienced mental health. Because 1 in 4 of us do, right? And so it's about raising awareness and having these open conversations, reflecting an eye or any of these other topics. And it should be, training the line managers, training everyone in the organization, but also at every level so that people are able to come and know where access to public support is, and that they all are able to get it and able to maintain productivity. It's about being able to thrive in the work. That's the only way to What else?
Very briefly, we need to
coach, so it really depends on the environment of that particular office, employees, population. So managers, leaders, the younger generation, they all might be differently engaged. And so it's really
Thank you. Thank you so much. We've come to an end, right? I want to thank all the panel members very, very much. Thank you for listening in. I truly enjoyed the conversation. I hope you feel the same way. Give a warm hand of applause to our panel.
So thank you for the panelists, for the room, for the insightful discussion. Let's wait. So now please let me invite Trevor to come on stage to present the token of appreciation to the moderator and panelists.
Thank you. Thank you. Handshake. Thank you very much. Thank you. No moderator. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So now I'm going to introduce the next speaker for this afternoon. For the next one is Dr. Ko Yi-min, Managing Director, Health and Employee Benefits at AXA Hong Kong, who will be delivering a presentation about managing stress. So let's welcome Dr. Ko to the stage, please.
Okay, good afternoon. You all must be tired, huh? So let's do it very quickly. If I speak quickly and you listen quickly, we will be over in like 5 minutes. Okay, because if it's managing stress, I certainly don't want to add to your stress. Can you hear me at the back? Okay, fantastic. Okay, I have about 10 slides, so you can work yourself. This slide is just to say that actually anxiety and depression is extremely common in the world. We hear from Zoe just now 1 in 4. But usually when we think about mental health, people think about the sad, the mad, and the bad. People always think about the people who are psychotic. But actually, mental health problems are incredibly common, and they are usually people who are a bit of anxious and depressed. And all of us at some stage will feel like that. Okay, let me see if I can. Oh, this one doesn't play. So you can. So this is actually a gift. So if any of you want it, I can send it to you. It's very cute. You just get whipped by the boss, right? It keep on hitting you. And then the next one is when you are completely exhausted and you are going round and round and round the merry-go-round. And then the third is actually this is the Pink Panther, and you are painting the pillar pink and blue because people just go around in circles and nothing gets done. But often it's the boss and nobody dares to say it. This is a very standard stress curve. Earlier on, we had, I think, from the lawyers about whether people feeling they are stressed. And I'm glad to see nobody says that they are completely stress-free. Because if you were, you are lame, right? You are completely, at the bottom here, inactive, bored, and lame, and you're non-productive. That's not a good place to be. But of course, as you get more stressed, you start to perform. It gets to a point where stress becomes a distress. as we can see here, and your performance actually dropped. So what we want to do is to get peak performance, and that's where the blue line is, so that you can go further, longer, and more to the right, and that's when you build your resilience. And the optimum stress level is where you perform at your best. So some people like to have some stress and work till like the 11th hour, where they feel that they absolutely can be the best that they can be. We're all different, so there's no right answer to achieving the optimal stress. It's about self-awareness and knowing yourself. But certainly when it gets to high stress, if you cannot sleep, you cannot eat, if you don't have time to go to the toilet, then that is a problem. So your body is telling you then that you need to revert back, go back up the curve. So that is the optimum curve that we're looking for, the Holy Grail. However, many programs at work, and I can say that because we have developed mental health programs at AXA in response to requests from our customers. So they said that they would like to have more support on mental health, and not just for people with stress or anxiety. They want something for everybody. And that is good, because we heard that most people will ask a friend when they are stressed or they need some help. This is from the UK. What are the factors that influence and affect workplace performance? You could put that as workplace stress. So these are the causes, right? Demands of your job, the support that you receive, the control that you have, that's very important. For some jobs, it's more important than others. Professionals in particular really value autonomy. So for them, if they don't have control, they will feel super stressed out. Well, for some people who want to be told, they are okay with that. Relationships at work, very important. Not just with your peers, especially with your boss. You know, the saying is that you leave a job because of your boss. Your role in the company, actually the person who is least stressed in the company is usually the chief executive. That's the case because they have the most autonomy, they have the most control, and they can have more support. So many studies have shown that in terms of organizational hierarchy, the lower down you are, then you are more likely to have more stress. But of course, no one size fits all. And ultimately, it's about how change is managed. We all know that change is constant, especially in the current climate. We're all, in one way or another, with COVID or with the economy, we're all going through stress. So how stress is managed is very important and can affect how we respond. This is a very famous curve. Some of you who have done any psychology or any curve, this is from Kubler-Ross in 1969, where she studied, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, where she studied people who are going through a grieving process. And what she found is that people go through a standard sort of cycle about these are the feelings from observation. That people go through that cycle of denial, anger, and then you start to think, well, maybe not. And sometimes we just feel like you want to give up. However, and some people get stuck at the bottom. However, the more resilient people and people who are able to accept and then change and then recommit. So this is a very popular curve. If you Google it, you will find Kubler-Ross change curve, 40 years old, 50 years old. But what we want to do is in managing stress in any situation, and I'm not talking about just the workplace, but in your personal life, is can we compress the curve so that it doesn't go on forever? Can you accelerate the curve so that it moves to the left? And then the impact will then be less, and then you can get over it. So I know that sometimes when I'm undergoing change, I know that I will have to go through the change curve. And I, in a way, try to tell myself, come on, Yamin, can you just quickly go through the change curve? And that meant I had to internalize a lot of things to come through the process of denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance, and so on. So, how do you manage stress? Now, when Kenny at the CII asked me to talk about managing stress, right? So, Kenny, this is the answer. how do we individually manage stress? The first is to take charge of your environment. And I can guarantee you that 99 out of 100 of us who are working in Hong Kong were all addicted to our device. Everyone, I mean, even, right, if you're not talking, you'll be on your phone. You have your phone when you're eating. You wake up, how many people take their phones to bed? How many people, the first thing you do in the morning is to check your phone? That has become ubiquitous. So we're all addicted to our device. So the only way, and we heard about how you need social support and so on, we need to disconnect to reconnect. This is a must-do. And now, I mean, actually, thank goodness, I never take my phone to bed or into my bedroom. It stays outside and I shut the door so that I don't even see the blue light and I don't hear the ping when things comes in. And because we are so addicted, oh, I must check the notification. And if you have notification switch on, turn it off so that you get some peace. Taking care of your body, very, very important. You cannot look after number one. If you don't look after number one, you cannot look after everyone else, those that you love and you care for. So how do you look after your body? Well, of course, the first one is sleep. Hong Kong people are notorious for sleeping the least in the world. I think I've seen many studies, 6.5, when we know minimum of 7 is needed. So if you're not sleeping enough, sleep more. Even if you think you're sleeping enough, sleep an extra half an hour. Exercise has been shown to work. It is synergistic with mental health. So people who want to improve their mental health, take up physical activity. And Ian earlier on talked, he's very active, so that's another way. And of course, eating well. Eating five a day, fresh fruits and vegetables. Very simple. You have to look after yourself, and I try to do that every day. And last but not least is taking care of your mind. We have heard of many different ways of doing that. We go to the gym to build the muscle. We need to build the mental muscle here, and you can do that in many ways. Stress management, mindfulness, positivity. Gratitude journaling works very well. Keep a gratitude diary, and of course, keeping connection with families and friends. We have a program in Nexa, and this is just to say that we have a comprehensive program. It's digital, it's also face-to-face, and it provides a mental health network. And if anyone is interested, can talk to me and I can demo it. Ultimately, unfortunately, you can't see it, but this is another gift. I love it because it is about this part lying down and having a spa and getting his massage, and this is ultimately where we all want to be when on a Friday evening and relaxing. So thank you very much.
The environment, take care of our body, and most importantly, take care of our mind.
Yes.
So now please let me invite Ms. Natalie, Regional Director of Hong Kong Asia Pacific from the city of Hong Kong, to come on stage and our doctor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kobo. The last session for that in Hong Kong. Mr. Roger Steele, Managing Director of Hong Kong and Macau at Ms. Watson, will be talking about creating a healthy workplace by being inclusive. So now, please welcome Roger to the stage.
Okay, good. I will still use this because I guess it makes the online better. Yes, I'm Roger. I'm from Willis Towers Watson. I want to thank Dr. Emian Kyo from AXA for going so fast. I'm going to cut out some of what I was going to say as well in the interest of time, but I've got a couple of messages that I think are a bit different to what you've heard so far. So please bear with me, and I really appreciate it if you can stick around either online or here in the room. Skip this one. I just want to point out, I think something, the theme of what I'm going to say is going to be a little bit more around diversity, bringing in, of course, the mental health issues and well-being, but really helping us to think about the diversity of the communities we have, particularly in our colleagues in the companies we work in. And one thing that is often forgotten is that the pandemic and indeed the social disruption in Hong Kong have affected our minority groups and our diverse colleagues more acutely than most of us. Now, I'm wearing this because I'm kind of diverse, and I'll talk about that later. But if you think about, for example, with women, you might say women have done well out of the pandemic because twice as many men die. But in fact, women, there's statistical evidence that there are 1.8 times more likely for women to lose jobs globally because of the nature of the work they do. And at the same time, we still have, and I'm not being politically incorrect in saying this, but we still have this undue burden that's placed on women with home care, etc. But when they're at home with the children, often they're the ones who've got to work and do the Zoom calls and look after the children and make sure. So, the impact on women is more severe than it is on, for example, on me as a male. And on the LGBT community, your LGBT colleagues, there's not so much statistical evidence, but there is some research that's been done that shows LGBT people are feeling the pain of the loneliness, if you like, more than others because they're very, very dependent on their network of friends. Maybe they're forced to live in a home where they can't be themselves with their parents, and they can't go out, they can't connect with people. And then finally, people with disabilities. They also find it's much more difficult because transport and transit is much more challenging than it has been, and they're also more likely to lose their jobs. So it's very, very pertinent that we actually think about the impact of the pandemic on these diverse groups. And one specific thing, there we go. So I want to talk, I mentioned the word loneliness, which is something I think we all feel, and as I was saying, those minority groups, if you like, feel it perhaps more acutely. I want to talk about a slightly different one, which is loneliness. Now, I think the graphic here is quite illustrative of that. Years ago, I remember going to work in Korea and business meetings there, and you'd go in and there would be literally like this. There would be one woman. I think it's got a bit better now. But we all know, I mean, probably all of us have actually had an experience of loneliness at some point in our career, where you've gone in and you're the only person, maybe you're the only Asian in a group of Caucasians, or the other way around. And it's not exactly a comfortable experience because we all feel the pressure to conform, and what we do is we self-suppress. Now I'm going to cut to the chase here a little bit. You can see all those things we do here. We actually suffer from microaggression. Someone will make a point about, oh, that gay guy is in the room, or something like that. So there's a lot of consequences that flow here. And it's not any better in a remote working situation. Why? Because what people will do when they're the only is they will hide. They will hide. And it's so easy to hide on a Zoom call. Right? Even if you turn off your camera and you multitask or whatever, but you certainly don't say anything. And the cost that we all pay, if we allow that to happen, if we allow loneliness to become a real barrier, is we don't get diversity of thought and opinion, and it's really anti-innovation. And one devil's advocate question that I just want you to think about, I'm going to move on very quickly, is we often talk about how important it is people fit with our culture. But actually that can be quite a poisonous thing in this sort of situation. Because we put too much emphasis on cultural fit and not enough emphasis on diversity and acceptance and really looking after those onlys we have. Just a quick quote that I quite liked. What can we do to address, if you like, that phenomenon of loneliness and to become more inclusive. And I like this one, which came from, there's a recent report done on mental illness, and I'm sure it was talked about before, mental health in Hong Kong. And this gentleman, Dr. Ivan Matt, said we need less social distancing and more distant socializing. So how can we do that? And I think we've heard quite a bit about well-being. I think the point here, without going through this slide due to time in detail, is that well-being really can create a well-structured well-being program, can create a virtuous circle that actually becomes self-reinforcing, where we are giving people self-esteem and confidence that is helping them to overcome perhaps their reservations about being an only person. Maybe they are, in fact, the only gay person or lesbian in their workplace, or they're in committees where they're one and only of a group of people. So you can overcome that by giving them confidence and also encouraging their colleagues to interact with them more. At the company level, these are all very well-known things that you can do. Unconscious bias training, events with a purpose. And one of the things that we've tried to do at Willis Towers Watson is to focus on purposeful events, not just sort of parties and things for their own sake, but things that actually link to a purpose, and link to a purpose that your organisation, your company has endorsed for a sustained period. So it's not just a sudden thing that you do, but it's something where people can relate to the integrity and the culture and the purpose of the organisation. Engaging with community organisations. So dive in. The N stands for lots of different things, inclusion, but also insurance. So for those of you connected with the financial services sector here, if you don't know, there is a financial services LGBT organisation, for example, called Interbank, and affiliate with it. Interbank would love to have more insurance members. For women, there's a Women's Foundation. It's very easy to become supporters of the Women's Foundation. And there are numerous organisations as well, like CARE-ER and others for disabled people. So link up, connect, and then your people can be involved in purposeful events associated with that. On the LGBT side, there's a Pink Friday coming up at the end of November, sponsored by Goldman Sachs, sort of loosely affiliated with Interbank. Think about participating in that. And then look, and I know it's been talked about, look at your benefit programs for inclusivity. But really where I wanted to get to, and I am going to take a few minutes here, is to make a call to all of us here as individuals, and for those of you who are online, I hope there's still some people watching. There's a marvelous thing about diversity, well-being, inclusion, even the things that we want to do to address mental health. And that is that we are all empowered. It doesn't matter whether we are that very relaxed CEO or whether whatever our role is, we can be leaders in this. There's nothing to stop us from being a force for good. So I'd like to encourage everybody to be authentic and to bring their own true self to work. When we talk about diversity, one of the themes that I think we all say is, we want people to be able to bring their true self to work. But how easy is that? And do we do it ourselves? Do we disclose and share, our own aspect of loneliness? We in the Philippines, Willis Towers Watson sponsors an annual conference for PWDs, people with disability. And one of the most remarkable experiences I had was this woman came out. Perfectly ordinary lady, obviously extremely capable. She suddenly said, you know what, I'm disabled. And she pulled up a leg. It was a completely artificial leg from here down. And you just didn't know. Now, that takes courage to say, I'm an only. And you allow people in your organisation to do it, and you do it yourself. So I will tell you, I'm an only, in a sense, probably only, there's lots of us, but I'm an openly gay leader in police, which is quite a little bit unusual. Some of my colleagues are here, they know on my first day in Willis Towers Watson, I said that and talked about my husband. And I think all of us here please have the sort of courage to share. You don't have to be, gay or whatever else, but be authentic and be who you are, and that's what people will value. Question others. Find out, ask them. One of the beautiful things about being authentic and openly authentic yourself, people will respond in kind. But if you're not, if you're very closed and you try to talk to someone at a personal level, they won't respond. So to be able to listen, to be able to learn, comes from your own authenticity. Get the dive-in message. The dive-in message about supporting your colleagues with their mental well-being, with their social well-being, with their loneliness, whatever they may feel, with the struggles they may have with working from home, whatever it may be, but own it and be passionate about it and champion that message. That integrity, again, it comes from that authenticity, people will respond to it. I didn't go into detail about microaggressions, but microaggressions are the snide comments that people make about, for example, if there's only one woman in the room, somebody will make a smart comment about, oh, she's brought her handbag along, I can see. It's really just a put down. It's not nice. And respond if you hear it. And I would say that's one of the most powerful things that we can all do. If you hear the joke being made about, the lesbian colleague, if you hear somebody saying something about, or laughing at the disabled colleague who needs help to do something, respond and pick them up on it in a supportive way, but pick them up on it. And then because you're going to be authentic, because we're all going to lead this, you'll be able to be confident in your conversations with others and be a force for change. And again, what I really like about Dive In, and I'm really proud that Willis Towers Watson is supporting this event globally. We have speakers in numerous events across Asia and the US, and Europe, and the UK. So it's great to be part of an organisation that does that. But it's great to be part, and thank you to the CII for its role in this, of an organisation that is bringing movement, that is bringing change to the insurance industry. So Dive In has so many meanings. Diversity in insurance, diversity in inclusion, whatever. But I like it as a verb. And I would like to encourage everyone here to dive in and be part of it and play your own role, be authentic, and bring about change. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your presentation. And so we almost come to the end of Dive In Hong Kong. Before we close the session, I would like to invite Trevor to say a few words.
CC. And look, a big thank you to everyone for coming, to those of you online, for everyone involved. A big round of applause, please, for our volunteers, for Kenny, his team, all the tunes, to Dylan, opening up our great message there from Roger, and again, everybody's had a wonderful thing to say, panelists and so on, speakers alike. So a big thank you. Look, we also have to acknowledge all the wonderful partners who've sponsored the event, not just by their logo, but financially or however else they've been involved with providing facilities and so on, the marketing, the branding and so on. Big thank you to Just Insurance Institute. I've been a member for over 35 years, so thank you, Kenny and the team. Obviously, DLA Piper, Kennedy's Marsh, the Ultra Partnership, my own firm, Willis Towers Watson, ZA Insure, thank you. We've had some wonderful participants. great speakers again from Aon, AXO, and so on. So thank you so much for everybody. Sorry if I haven't mentioned all your names, but you know who you are. Wonderful. Now look, it's an online event, so you can get involved still. Please keep actively involved. You can check it out on hashtag DiveIn2020 or hashtag Global Inclusion. We've had 17 partners involved with this event. Thank you so much indeed. I mean, look, hopefully you'll keep chatting online, you'll be involved, check out the slides and so on, hopefully they'll be circulated too. A big thank you again for Kenny, those who dialed in, Sean and Keith and Kate. Thank you everyone, and here's to next year, and I hope to be involved as I'm in my second year involved, as some of you are too, so let's roll on next year. Thank you so much for all you've done for this diversity, and thank you.
So, we've come to the end of mental health and well-being in the workplace. Thank you so much to our wonderful speakers and panelists, and also thank you to all of you joining us here today at the Dallas United Center, and also to all the participants virtually. I believe the journey to inclusive and healthy workplace doesn't stop here. So we look forward to seeing you at the Dive-In events, at the other one, which you may check at the Dive-In Festival website. So thank you. Thank you everyone for joining today.